Fnaf has released 10 mainline games over its 10 years, and in those games you'll come up against a number of animatronics. Well, in this video I'm going to be ranking all of Fnaf's boss fights from worst to best. Now the term boss fight can be a bit vague, so my definition for it is a brief encounter against a single animatronic in a game where the player would usually face a number of animatronics. For example, I'm not going to be counting any of the 420 knights in any of the games since the player goes up against multiple animatronics. I'm also not going to be counting boss fights in spin-off games since there's too many of them and they just take over the list. So no FNAF World or Freddy in Space. Also, I'm not going to be counting help wanted levels since once again they just take over the list, and most help wanted levels have you up against a single animatronic. Also, FNAF 3 and Into the Pit will not count since you're up against a single animatronic for the entire game and not for a brief encounter. Please note this is all my opinion, and if you disagree or have something to say, please put it in the comments. And with all that out of the way, let's get right into the ranking. Now, I do understand that the Mimic does stretch the definition of a boss fight, and some people may not consider it a boss fight since all he really does is just chase you. And that's exactly why he's at the bottom of the list. The encounter is really quite short and consists of the Mimic chasing you through a series of underground tunnels until you reach a lift. Once in the lift, the Mimic attempts to grab you, fails, and that's the encounter done. I put it at the bottom of the list due to the short length of the fight and the fact that it's genuinely quite easy, since the Mimic moves at a very slow pace. I, like most people, didn't die or have any trouble with this encounter at all, which is why it places bottom at number 10. Burntrap. Where do I begin? One of the most hated FNAF characters for good reason. In the secret ending of Security Breach, you'll go underground into the old pizzeria, and what will you find? William Afton. Again. Yay. Burntrap is really just another lazy and unoriginal way of bringing back Afton, who everyone would rather remain dead, and for Steel to stop milking him. The actual gameplay of this boss fight is also pretty rubbish, since Burntrap can't even kill you. He doesn't even have a jump scare, he instead gets one of the other animatronics to kill you, which is just so lazy. In the fight you'll have to burn Burntrap. Do you get it? Whenever he tries to take over Freddy. If he successfully takes over Freddy, then Freddy kills you. Burn him enough times and you win. You also have to evade Roxy and Monty while fighting him, which does add a bit of a challenge, but not much. My main issue with the fight is just the pure laziness behind it and the idea of bringing Afton back again, which absolutely no one asked for. I only really put this above the Mimic because this is more of a boss fight. What I will give Burntrap though is that he has a very good introduction. When he scrapes his hand on like the charging station, that is very cool. But other than that, yeah, pretty rubbish boss fight. At our 8th spot we have the Glamrock Chica boss fight. Now I will say this boss fight isn't bad, it's more just very lacking. In this fight you'll fall down a dumpster with Chica and grab her voice box. The main aim is to then turn on all 3 generators and escape. While I will say Chica's ruined design and the disgusting setting of the area are really creepy and definitely add to the atmosphere, and since Chica's lost her voice box, she makes a really horrifying screeching noise, which I think is a really nice touch. Where this boss fight lacks is its gameplay. The entire thing is mainly just running from Chica and occasionally stunning her with the camera or the gun or something. I will say the inclusion of the Nightmare staff bots and the post-it note room are definitely some cool and creepy additions. The gameplay is just boring and kind of easy. However, just like the Burntrap fight, the beginning cutscene of this boss battle where you kind of like crush Glamrock Chica is absolutely brilliant.
Access granted.
Ennard. I absolutely f***ing hate this little f***ing bullshit boss fight. In Night 5 of Sister Location, if you disobey what Baby tells you and instead go a different direction, you unlock the Ennard boss fight where you must survive Ennard until 6 AM in a FNAF 1 style game mode. Ennard progressively gets more aggressive throughout the night and you'll have to listen to which door he goes to in order to shut it. So why is this above the others? Purely because of its difficulty and the fact that near the end of the night it can actually be quite a lot of fun listening to where he goes and having the quickest reaction time to shut the door before he gets you. Now a little confession, I've never actually beaten this night. When I tell you it's difficult, I mean it is difficult and sometimes really frustrating. The main issue is you have little to no power in this knight and must do everything you can to conserve it as best you can. While the difficulty can make for a very good challenge, it's also incredibly frustrating at times, which is why it's on the lower side of this list. However, I will admit the ending of this boss fight is incredibly eerie. Slowly watching Ennard creep into your home is terrifying and an amazing way to top it off. At number 6 we have the Roxy Wolf boss fight from Security Breach. Now this is where the boss fights start to genuinely get good. In this fight you have to literally hit Roxy with a car, which I think is just absolutely brilliant, and you just absolutely destroy her. Once you flatten the bitch, you have to grab her eyes and then the boss fight starts. Since Roxy's lost her eyes, she'll have to listen out for you and will dash towards you once she's figured out your position. You'll have to use this to your advantage and make her charge through multiple planks of wood to progress through the map and just make it to the end. Now, what are my opinions on this boss fight? While the fight may be pretty easy since Roxy isn't fast and is very predictable at times, this fight is still tons of fun, and the burning destroyed setting of the arena is also very cool. I also think this boss absolutely has the funniest opening cutscene when she gets hit by that car.
Naughty boy, it's past your bedtime. You must be punished. 99.
At our halfway mark in the list, we have Moondrop from Security Breach. When I say this boss fight terrified me, I promise you it really did. In Security Breach, once you make it to the daycare, you'll encounter Sun, but then for some stupid reason you turn the lights off and Sun turns into Moon and he turns evil. In the boss fight you'll have to traverse the play area, following the wires and finding 5 generators to turn back on so you can switch the lights back on. While you're doing this, Moon will be hunting you down and trying to get you. While this boss fight may not be the most difficult or creative, I absolutely love the theming and the horror of this boss fight. Moon's design is fantastic and extremely creepy. Paired with his creepy walk and the fact he sometimes goes on all fours is extremely scary. Also, the setting of this boss fight is really good. The play area is really colourful and vibrant while the room is pitch black. You also occasionally hear Moon speaking with his raspy voice. The reason I haven't put this higher is because it's just really not that difficult and the gameplay is just a find and collect style minigame, so it isn't really the most creative. Despite that, I had a lot of fun on this boss fight and I basically shit myself. So that is why we have Moon at our 5th spot. At our number 4 spot we have DJ Music Man from Security Breach. Now this boss battle is a lot of fun and extremely entertaining. You have to run around the West Arcade and restore power to 3 main switches. While doing this you'll have to avoid Chica and Monty. One of them's going to be in their decommissioned form depending on who you fight earlier, and you also have to evade basically hundreds of staff bots in the area. There's also some parts where you have to avoid DJ Music Man himself, and I'd just like to quickly appreciate how cool looking this guy is. For the final switch you have to go in this massive hallway area and run away from DJ Music Man in a really cool chase scene. The difficulty of this boss fight can vary depending on who you decommissioned, as Chica practically remains the same while Monty loses both of his legs and therefore loses his jump ability, which can be extremely annoying. But regardless of all that, I wouldn't say this boss fight is hard at all, but it's definitely not easy. While I do kind of wish we got to see a bit more of DJ Music Man up front, as the majority of the boss fight is sometimes just avoiding Chica, Monty and the staff bots, I still had tons of fun on this boss fight and I think it gave the player quite a good challenge, and that is why we have DJ Music Man at our number 4 spot. Taking our bronze medal of this list we have Nightmare Fredbear. The first major boss fight Fnaf gave us, as he's the only animatronic you go up against in Night 5 and he does all the jobs of the other animatronics, just much quicker and a lot more annoying. He'll come to both doors, the closet and the bed. This night is obviously very difficult as Fnaf is generally quite a hard game and Nightmare Fredbear is very quick. This is also definitely one of the scariest nights, as Fnaf 4 is an extremely terrifying game and probably the scariest Fnaf game. Nightmare Fredbear's design is even more chilling, and I do think that he is the scariest Fnaf animatronic out of the whole lot. My main issue with this boss fight is probably the lack of creativity in the gameplay mechanics, as the usual Fnaf 4 gameplay doesn't really change at all, and that can make this boss fight repetitive and sometimes just not fun to play. But that's just my personal preference, and I do recognise that this is Fnaf's probably Fnaf's most iconic boss fight, which is why it takes our bronze medal of this list, and the number 3 spot. Taking our silver medal of the list, we have Nightmare. Basically a much more irritating Nightmare Fredbear with just a shitter jump scare. He appears in Night 7 and 420 mode from 4 AM onwards, and just like Nightmare Fredbear, he's the only animatronic you face and replaces all the jobs of the other animatronics. Only thing is he's much more aggressive than Nightmare Fredbear. So why have I put him higher? Well, the only real difference between them is the major gap in difficulty, and I feel the player will get a much larger sense of achievement, and if we're being honest, I think Nightmare is the true final boss of Fnaf 4. And I think Nightmare is slightly cooler than Nightmare Fredbear, but that's about it. They are very similar and I just gave the edge to Nightmare. Now let's get on to who I think the best Fnaf Five Nights at Freddy's boss fight is. And our number 1 spot of best boss fight in Fnaf goes to Monty in Security Breach. A very entertaining boss fight which is also quite a challenge. In the boss fight you'll be on a collection of walkways and you have to find turrets and shoot moving targets to fill up a bucket. While you're doing this, Monty will be chasing you and trying to get you. But Monty doesn't just chase you. No, he jumps around the arena really quickly, giving you very little reaction time to turn around the other way. You have to play this quite safe as Monty will force you to leave a turret quite often, and since the walkways are quite narrow he can block the way to some turrets. So basically the entire minigame you'll just be running. So why do I love this boss fight so much? Well, first off, the walkways are arranged in a maze-like pattern, sometimes making it really tricky to reach certain turrets. Also, Monty's AI isn't just running after you, it also includes him jumping in front of you a lot of the time and overall just being a nuisance. Also, I really like the rainforest aesthetic of the arena. The boss fight has really good theming and isn't just the usual dark, scary place. Next is the difficulty. There's a good chance you'll probably die a couple times, which forces you to rethink your strategy and try a different approach. Also, that cutscene intro, so freaking tough. Anyway, that is going to be the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and check out a few of my other videos. And with that, bye bye.